Jeff Wick, editor of the Fayette County Record newspaper. We are here in beautiful Praha, Fayette County, here at the, what's the official name of this church, Sharon?
The Assumption of Mary Church.
Assumption of Mary Church, the oldest of the four famous painted churches here in Fayette County. Joined by Sharon Rankin, a tour guide here, and joined as always by H.H. Howes and Andy Balin. Here on, it's a nice mix of old and new here. On this iPad, we've got the e-edition of the new edition of the Fayette County Record. I don't know if you can pick that up here, Becky, but beautiful electronic reproduction that subscribers can sign up to get. You can get an electronic version of the paper in an email form right away, Mondays and Thursday mornings. Before we talk a little bit about what's in the paper, Sharon, why don't you tell us a little bit about this beautiful church that's behind us here?
Yes, it is a beautiful church. It was built in 1895, and if you look at the stone, it's a very familiar stone to people from Texas. This came from a quarry about 20 miles from here, and the people went with wagons and their tools and brought back big blocks of stone and then chiseled away until they had the right size to build this church. Now, many courthouses in Texas are built from this same stone. Built.
Do they call this Muldoon blue?
Well, it could be. It came from Muldoon.
Yeah. It's called Muldoon blue.
Same stone that's in the courthouse.
Some of it's in the courthouse. Yeah.
Yes, courthouses all over Texas built in the 1890s. Also the Galveston seawall. So it's a very important stone, very beautiful. And of course this is a Gothic structure, which is very important to us as church-going people. We love Gothic architecture. And that is the steeple points to God and the windows point to God.
And you were telling us a very humorous story about the placing of the cross on top of the steeple over 100 years ago.
Yes, this is a very high steeple, and they needed someone to climb up and place the cross on the very top. No one wanted to do so. There were 1,200 people here waiting for the priest to come and bless this beautiful church. So they were asking people to volunteer. We didn't have any steeplejacks here, and so people were hesitant to volunteer because it is very high. They finally decided one family would give a keg of beer to anyone that would climb up there and place this cross. Finally, a man showed up. We do not have his name. And he said yes, he would climb up there for a keg of beer. So that he did, placed the cross, and then, to the horror of the crowd, turned in a circle. And then came down, took his keg of beer, and left. They didn't even know his name. That wasn't important to them. The cross was there in time for the priest to come and bless the church.
I bet he was a Catholic, though.
I think we may solve that mystery today. Pancho, how did you do that? How did you get up there?
A good Catholic do anything for a keg of beer.
Well, why don't we get out of this wind and go through these ornate doors and talk a little bit more about the new edition of the newspaper as well as the beautiful interior of this church.
Yes, and these doors are beautiful. They actually have St. Peter and St. Paul, St. Cyril and St. Methodius, and those are very important to the Czechs.
Look at the detail in this painting. It's
These
amazing.
were restored by a company in Houston, and they put the canvases in. Prior to that, it did not have canvases.
Wow.
Wow, that is fantastic. Looks like something you see in Europe.
Well, of course.
And right as you walk in, you're greeted by these amazing sculptures. Just truly amazing. Heavy doors.
Yes, very, but they're the original.
Well, before we go into any more about the church, Andy and Pancho, y'all want to talk a little bit about some of the things people can find in today's edition of the newspaper?
Sure thing. Well, at the top of the front page this morning, we have a story about a tree that fell over at my office sports bar in LaGrange and crushed a couple of cars. That got cleaned up earlier this week, but
Explain that to your wife, huh?
it wasn't me.
I'm at the office.
Texas Heroes Day is taking place this weekend in LaGrange. There's a pretty good chance of rain this weekend, so a lot of the festivities that were scheduled to take place over at Monument Hill State Park have been moved to Casino Hall in LaGrange. I don't believe they're going to be shooting off any cannons inside Casino Hall, but all the other reenactors and basket makers and all those activities are going to be taking place inside there. There's also a really interesting talk that's going to be taking place at the library on Friday night. And then a group of LaGrange high school kids that are in the drama program and Anchor Club are going to be putting on a play on Saturday night, and that's going to take place at the old jail, and it's rain or shine. Pancho, you got a story on there about the new Round Top mayor.
Yeah, Round Top has a new mayor. I want to stress that I don't write the headlines for these
What is
stories.
this guy's name? What's this?
Barry Bone.
There was considerable conversation in the office about headline possibilities with this new mayor, and I think it's going to be a fruitful tenure with the guy of that name. You may see some colorful headlines.
I just want to say that I don't have anything to do with that.
Also, that's the 145th anniversary, 145th Schützenfest is taking place in.
I hear from Ronnie Socks at the Round Top State. He helps organize this. 2 kegs of authentic German beer.
And
One that they tap the.
That seems wrong. The winner of the shooting competition gets 2 kegs of beer, and the guy that had to climb up the steeple only got 1.
The guy who won the shooting competition had a gun, right?
I guess he does get 2 kegs of beer. More Hope Hill dialogue at the LaGrange City Council meeting. Jeff, you wrote a story on this.
Yes, the conversation continues and probably will for quite a while on that issue. And look at this. I just got to compliment the ease with which you can just go through this newspaper, the e-edition. And so if any of you are interested out there, this is especially good for people interested in Fayette County who maybe don't live in Fayette County. You can get your news as quickly as any local with this easy-to-use e-edition. So call the office if you're interested in subscribing to that. Actually, right here, Robert Eckhart had a nice interview with J.K. Dobbins up in Columbus, Ohio Wednesday. He's got a preview of the Buckeyes' big game with TCU this week with a lot of interesting thoughts from JK about that.
Yeah, so if you're interested in the e-edition, give us a call at the Record and we'll get you signed up. It comes to your email box every.
You get it a day early.
There we go.
You
You get a day early and it comes into your email box, and we're not loading because I think our internet service is a little slow out here in Praha, but comes right to your email. So give us a call, sign up, and we'll be happy to get you subscribed.
But let's turn our attention back to this beautiful church here. And Sharon, why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the things that greet visitors here right when they walk into the church here in Praha?
Okay, of course, this would be Jesus. And of course, Jesus with the cross. And prior to the restoration of this was in this room to the right with glass around it. Everything has been repainted in the whole church, in the entire church. Everything has been repainted except for the ceiling, which was very important to leave it the way it was originally painted. This would be the confessionals, and then new canvases were placed in here by the company out of Houston. We have Jesus giving sight to the blind man. We have the Father and the prodigal son, and then we have St. John listening to the confession of Our Lady of Bohemia.
Look at these beautiful stained glass windows, all with names of, I guess, early parishioners who maybe donated to have these done.
That donated them, and also this is 24 karat gold. Wherever
Wow.
you see gold, it's 24 karat.
Is this St. Francis?
This is St. Martin.
St. Martin?
Yes, finder of all lost items.
Like he found an angel one.
And so, Sharon, the extensive renovations here at the church were completed, 2 years ago?
Yes, 2 years ago, and they went from a new copper roof to removing all the pews, removing the floor covering. There was green tile on top of all of this. It was put on in the 40s. And
Was it ceramic tile or was it?
asbestos.
Oh, wow.
Yes, which caused more problems. Now, it's all the original floor, longleaf pine, that was placed in this church in 1895 when it was built, with the exception of the center aisle, and the center aisle was worn, of course. So they ordered new longleaf pine in the restoration period, and when it was delivered, it was like a half an inch thick, and this floor has no squeaks, and it's like 3 inches thick. So they went up to the altar, or up in the where the organ and the choir sat, and took up the floor, replaced that floor down the center, and then put the new upstairs.
In the choir loft.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, these amazingly ornate stations of the cross all around the church as well.
Yes, the Stations of the Cross all came from Rome, and now they have all been repainted. Everything is simply, has given a facelift. Just simply beautiful in this church.
And Sharon, tell us a little bit about some of the things up here near the altar.
Yes, okay. Now, when the Czechs finished this church, they wanted it painted on the inside, and it was very important to them to have a very good artist, which was very hard to find in 1895. They went to San Antonio and they found a wonderful Swiss artist by the name of Gottfried Fleury. He came here and painted as Michelangelo would have painted the Sistine Chapel, which was on his back. And they had ideas about what they wanted. This was all to be a Garden of Eden. So he took artistic license from what he saw outside because he was Swiss, painted that. The clouds were beautiful, very, very beautiful work. Then they had some other requirements. One, they wanted on the above the high altar, painted on the left side, would be a Assumption of monastery called in Villerod that was actually to St. Cyril and St. Methodius. They are very important Czechs, saints to the Czechs. And they had a monastery there. Well, it was destroyed in 1681 by a fire, and so they rebuilt it and gave it a Baroque face. So that's why it looks a little bit different. But it's the spiritual heart of the Czech Republic. Then we go over to the right of the altar and we see St. Vitus Church. St. Vitus is located in Prague Castle. It has absolutely beautiful architecture. It's Gothic in style, see the high steeples. And in that church, it's the largest church in Prague. In that church would be the tombs of many, many important Czechs who were kings and Roman emperors. So it's a beautiful church, and they've done a beautiful job. Of course, above the high altar are painted angels with the cross, and this is the Assumption of Mary Church. So she's going to heaven, and you see her on the high altar. She is standing in a crescent moon, which is very important. If you notice beneath her would be angels that are looking up, and they are lifting her into heaven. We have beautiful paintings on both sides. On the left-hand side are paintings by a wonderful artist, Mr. Berger. His works hang in the museum in Czechoslovakia and Prague. Then on the right we have two others that you will see first. One is St. Cyril and St. Methodius, and one is Ludmilla. And they were painted by the first priest that was here in this church. Then we have another on the right that was painted to remember, it was painted in 1969 to recall the deaths of 9 boys from this church that died in World War II.
And those young soldiers are memorialized every year in a big event up
Around Veterans Day every
Yes,
year.
around Veterans Day, and they have planes that fly over and drop out flowers from the window. So, of course, needless to say, they're antique planes.
Yeah, truly amazing that such a small community like this, had 9 soldiers serving in the war at the same time, and then just so tragic that an entire generation from this community of young men just wiped
They
out.
all died in the last year of the war.
Yes, exactly. They did.
Wow.
One of the interesting things I find about these painted churches, and this is just the first, we're going to be doing a series on painted churches the next few weeks, but all the when Vatican II took place, a lot of the churches changed. They took out the altar rails and things like that, but these old painted churches still have all of those pre-Vatican II architecture style.
Architecture, exactly. Well, now, of course, this church, because everything is so new and beautiful, in the beginning, when they were told to remove their ambo and their canopy, they did, but they kept it, fortunately. They moved it into their school that is next door. So I was so excited when I saw in everything that was going to go in the church at the time, they were going to bring this back, but they could not find the canopy, so they had to build a new canopy, which is beautiful. It's all 24 karat gold, and if you notice, there is a microphone in it, which tells me that Father Gabriel speaks from it. And that is people usually don't know what an ambo is. An ambo was to raise the priest up where everyone could see him, he could see everyone, and everyone could hear him. The canopy, usually with a Holy Spirit dove in it, would be also part of that projection. So they were told, the churches were told with Vatican II that they didn't need this anymore. That we now had microphones, and they were also told to put in a new low altar, because prior to that time, the priest faced the high altar and spoke Latin. This was a Czech church. So what did they do about that? The young people did not understand because they couldn't speak Latin. But of course nowadays that has not been carried down. That's a tradition that has not been carried down to grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and I think that's unfortunate. But that's why they had these beautiful ambos.
And I think it was some local craftsmen that worked on all of this. All of this was done by parishioners. I know Junior Halupka had a
Yes.
big part to play in
Oh,
all this
yes,
work.
he did.
Yeah.
He certainly did, and look at what he did.
He's amazing.
These are country people that have lived here all their lives, and look what they can do. It's just amazing. I'm from Houston, and so I truly appreciate it. I'm from here now, but I was amazed.
How often do you give tours of the church here?
Well, we're open 6 days a week for church tours, and you would be amazed at how many people still come to see these churches. And I don't mind doing 5 a week, but I live in a farm, and so I need to go one day with animals.
And I imagine you see people from all over the world coming to tour these churches.
All over the world, and quite often they cannot speak English, which is difficult. But we now have a darling lady that speaks 5 languages from Barcelona, so she can help us immensely.
And of course,
she lives in the heart of Schulenburg. She lives in the Kranz mansion.
Who is that?
Noemi.
Oh, okay.
and of course the beauty of these churches transcend any language for sure.
Of course.
And if somebody wants to take a tour, what should they do?
They call the Schulenburg Chamber of Commerce, and 979-743-4919. No, I'm sorry, that's the wrong number. No, that's not right.
We'll add that to
Yeah,
this
you
video
add
later
it. You
anyway.
add it,
Yeah.
and they can request a tour, and they will have a tour guide. And I'm just I'm speaking from my point of view, but you can't see these churches and not have a guide because nothing is written down for you to copy or say, what am I looking at? So it's very important, and that is important to the churches because you pay to see these churches, and it's $10 a person. $2 out of your $10 goes to each church. And that is very important because they need restoration money. And it will be well worth your $10 to come here and see them with a guide and understand what you're seeing.
For sure. Do you have a favorite feature of this church?
Probably the chandelier.
This one right here?
I think it's beautiful. It dates to 1830. It's from Czechoslovakia. And of course, it held candles.
But it's been since wired for electricity.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Wired for electricity. It's beautiful. There's so many favorite things about this church. It's really hard for me to say that is my most favorite.
Do they play the organ?
They cannot play the organ. It no longer works, and it's going to be very costly to restore it. So I think when they totally finished with all of this, then they're supposed to have the organ. They have an automated machine that plays at 6 in the morning, 12 at noon, 6 in the evening, the Angelus, and it's very beautiful. It's almost like the sound of music when you're in the hills and you can hear it echoing. It's beautiful to be here.
Wonderful. Well, this is just such a tremendous church, and thank you so much, Sharon, for allowing us to see it and enjoy your expertise. And make sure to contact the Schulenburg Chamber to take a tour of this church and the other 3 churches here in Fayette County, the painted churches, which of course we'll be visiting over the next few weeks as part of this video series. And that fee you pay to the Schulenburg Chamber will help keep this church beautiful, and that portion may help to go renovate and get that organ going.
Restored.
So again, thank you so much, and thank you all for watching, and come out and visit these really just treasured parts of Fayette County that have been so wonderfully preserved and restored. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Remember, you can always find us at FayetteCountyRecord.com. We're also on Facebook. All these videos go to YouTube, and we're on Instagram as well and Twitter. So thanks for watching, and thanks for reading the paper.